And now we'll go to Mr. Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Rob Gray, and I was asked to testify today on the theory of competing currencies and the practical challenges that make such a theory difficult or impossible to implement. For nearly 5 years now, I've successfully directed the American Open Currency Standard, the standard for private voluntary silver, copper, and gold currencies that compete against each other, not against the U.S. dollar. Allow me to clarify, we do not consider AOCS-approved medallions produced and traded in our private barter marketplace competition at all to the U.S. Federal Reserve Note, because fair competition, as one would find in the free market, assumes the existence of a level playing field, existence of a standard set of rules. Those players who wish to compete honestly do so by simply relying on the merit of the value that they bring to the market. Well, no fair challenge can be made between honest men and thieves. And let me be clear when I say thieves. I refer directly to the current private central bank and the men in government who allow it to exist. Brings us to a critical point. According to your employee handbook, Article 1, Section 8 says that Congress shall have the power to coin money, regulate the value thereof. And I would argue that since 1913, Congress has failed to do the job with which it has been tasked. In the free market, since our inception, the Open Currency Standard has enjoyed nearly 5 years of growth and success, and our mission of issuing a means that allows valuable exchanges among men who produce. In the next 5 years, we expect to expand our offerings and to increase our ability to keep up with the demand for our private currency. We are doing the job today that Congress would not. But back to theory. The use of community currencies here in the U.S. became popular back in the early 1930s. You see, at the time, the theory was that a group of the world's most powerful men were intentionally and systematically removing currency from circulation, creating artificial scarcity of money across the country. Small cities and towns felt it worse than anyone, but life did go on. Then, during the greatest economic depression the country had ever seen, individuals across the country developed their own mediums of exchange. They still needed things like food, clothing, daily essentials. They still needed to live, and they didn't have time to sit around and wait for the government to fix the problem. And so, according to historical records, thousands of community currencies were created, circulated, and traded in places where the scarcity of dollars was interfering with humans' desire to live. Individuals took it upon themselves back then to secure the means for their own survival and potential prosperity. More recently, community currencies have sprung up across Europe as the euro and other national currencies become increasingly unavailable and undependable. Today, communities all across the Eurozone trade their own money instead of the euro. Community currencies today are not simply a good idea in theory. Right now, alternative and complementary currencies circulate widely across the country, right now in many different forms. Ithaca, New York has Ithaca hours that are loosely based on the value of time. Berkshire, Massachusetts uses a fiat-backed fiat system. And many more communities circulate gold, silver, copper, AOCS-approved barter tokens as a medium of exchange. As for the practical challenges in the issuance and circulation of complementary currencies, there are plenty. In a voluntary system, those that participate in the trading of private currencies must deal with the possibility of counterfeiting, fraud, scarcity, acceptance, accounting, storage, and other issues, all without the luxury of Big Brother holding a gun to anyone's head to ensure their success. But even with all these risks, the market still moves on. As in any free market, good ideas circulate with success, and bad ones eventually fade away. Participants voluntarily choose to accept and circulate the highest quality currencies in exchange for their best production. Merchants accept complementary currencies based on the premise that someone else is willing to do the same thing later. Issues arise and are worked out by the market with only one light to guide them: the mutual exchange of value. No guns, no laws, no force, just the willingness to think outside the box and act on principle. Complementary currencies are not new in theory or in practice. Private currencies circulated long before governments erected themselves to interfere. What's new, however, is the public's apathy towards the government, the Federal Reserve, and their policies. You've managed somehow for the last 100 years to convince the citizens of this country that you're relevant. But now, just recently, we're beginning to see the tides change on this, and once it catches on, you'll be rendered completely obsolete. The greatest hurdle you'll face over the next 100 years is trying to convince we the people that you're still necessary, in spite of their failures to get the job done. Sure, some will rely on you for handouts. It's what they've always known their entire lives, and they'll be slaves right up to the point of their own destruction. But they don't know any better, and I don't blame them for their ignorance. In the future, you'll not have to worry about million-man marches or citizen journalists trying to catch you on camera. What you need to fear is no one paying attention to you. The next American Revolution will be fought with not with bullets and bombs, but instead it will be one with the opposite consciousness. To that end, I'm here today to propose a solution. My understanding of this committee is that you want to be part of the solution. You want to believe that you're doing something good for the country. And so today, the greatest gift that you can offer to the people that you clearly represent, not to the legislature, but directly to the public, is what I call IR 1207, Individual Resolution 1207, commonly referred to as Ignore the Fed. Store your wealth in silver. Bank with non-fractional banks that pay real money on deposits. Use the card service network to satisfy dollar obligations. Do not try to compete with the Federal Reserve System. Simply ignore them. I ask you to leave the Fed their Federal Reserve notes and leave us our gold, silver, and copper. Do not push to redefine whatever representations we choose for our wealth. Let the Fed do what it wants with their legal tender so long as they leave our money alone. I warn you, honest money legislation is a wolf in sheep's clothing. The greatest thing this body can do is exactly what it's done so far. Absolutely nothing. All I ask is that you stay out of the market's way. The people in our world are very happy to go right along saving you from your own destruction by producing value against all odds, regulations, codes, and challenges that you throw our way. But leave our money alone. It doesn't belong to you, and it never will. The bottom line is very simple. Humanity is not going to wait for permission to survive. Things that cannot go on forever simply won't. The market will move on with or without you. And based on your rate of success to date, our preference is certainly without you. Thank you for your time.